I've worked so hard on myself, and now people start bashing it down. And so it got to a low point where I started experiencing anxiety. So my name is Hamani Tanginoa. I'm a proud Wiradjuri Tongan and gay man. I am a musician studying music at JMC Academy. I am also a political activist, very vocal in the Aboriginal community, the LGBTQI community as well. Speak out on many platforms such as the Drum, Q&A. I'm also the first Aboriginal Youth Premier in the New South Wales YMCA Youth Parliament program in 2019. And I am a member of the Canadian and Australian Youth Indigenous Youth Health and Wellbeing Committee with Indigenous Allied Health Australia. So my journey with mental health started at a very young age. I didn't know that I was Aboriginal until I was in year 3. I just thought that I was just Australian. But my family, my mum knew that she was Aboriginal, and she would take me to events when I was younger. She would take me to NAIDOC and stuff, women's group when I was really young and I wasn't able to take care of myself. And I just thought that were just community events that mum just likes to go to. I didn't know that there were, I didn't know that there were Aboriginal community events and little groups, but I didn't properly know until I was in year 3. And it was quite hard because I'd hear, at that age, you start, you never thought you hear any forms of racism and discrimination. And hearing the terms petrol sniffer and and then the stigma of being given things for free, that kept going. Now that I still hear that to this day, hear that, and it was quite hard. It did mess with me because I'm okay, I just found out about my identity. Why are people putting down on it? And you get taught about bullying and forms of bullying in schools, but they never talk about. They don't. I feel like schools don't have are not comfortable talking about racial discrimination and bullying upon race, because I think we're not ready. People are not ready to have that conversation, but we have to have that conversation. That kept going for years to come. Went to high school with a bunch of people from my primary school who did bully me, targeted me for no reason at all, but also started targeting me because of my race, because of my heritage, and because of my identity. And in high school, I started to question more about what I am as a person, in terms of my sexuality. Came out as bi for a bit, and then I'm no, just like boys. So I came out, didn't come out to my dad yet, him being from a Tongan background. It's very taboo, and the same thing with Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people. The terms of the idea of sexuality is very taboo because it's between men and women's business. So it's the same there as well. But hearing more words being spoken at you, faggot and a pufta, especially hearing that, it's quite disappointing to hear that, because I've worked so hard on myself, and now people start bashing it down. And so it got to a low point where I started experiencing anxiety, forms of depression. I don't really talk about this one situation, but I think it's time. But like, there was a point where I did wanted to end it all. The only thing that saved me was my mum finding me doing it before anything could happen. And so that's where I knew that I had to get some help. So you normally go to the school psychologist or like counsellor, but the one at the first high school that I went to, he helped, but not as much because he didn't know what to do, because the people kept denying it, and I started becoming the bully, because I'm targeting these people, because I'm calling out to them. I'm calling out about what they're doing. So I made the decision to move schools, because it got to a point where I'm like, I can't do this anymore. If I continue being here, it's going to be at a point where I actually might do more harm to myself and to others as well. So I moved, funnily enough, to a Catholic school. It was great, to be honest. Going there for the first time, I was quite nervous because it's a new school, I don't know anybody, and that's when I started to become more myself, understanding myself more, and then it's happened again. But this time I did have support of some teachers, especially in the creative arts department with music and drama, and there were some friends there that understood me, especially this one person. They understood me because they were also part of the LGBTQI plus community. He was transgender, but also he also had the stress of being the granddaughter of the principal. But the best thing, that the principal was so understanding, and she respected him as a man, and it was quite good to see that. So I had that support from the principal, I had that support from a few students, but they left, and then new leadership came up. So that's when it started getting a bit rough again. But I knew that I learned. I had time. I had a few years to grow myself back up, be strong again, so I'm able to fight through it. And then I started going into advocacy through music. Used music as a sort of a gateway. Started music when I started feeling very. Started experiencing these sort of stuff. So around year 3, year 4, started music and musical theatre. And I saw it as a gateway to get away from everybody, a different world that I'm only a part of. And it helped, it really helped. I was able to do programs when it comes to music for Aboriginal and Torres Strait the young people in schools. And from there, we was able to perform at different events with Department of Education, the Australia concerts, and it was a good time. But I left that, I started doing my own thing, then did advocacy, speaking out, started becoming a leader in the school. And I still remember doing so much at the school, doing so much in the community, and I was not being acknowledged. They weren't acknowledging it properly, like other students. Like they'll put them up in assembly, they praise them and all that sort of stuff. I just get an email from the principal saying, thank you so much, this is great, but no actual form of like acknowledgement. It wasn't until I started the youth parliament program with the YMCA, then that's where it started getting more, I started getting appreciated more. But like most things in my life, they're only temporary. That started leaving when I put in a application to become a captain in Year 12. And some of the teachers telling me that I wasn't good enough for it. I shouldn't be captain because I've only done for 6 months, where I've actually done stuff with the school for over 3 years, for the 3 years I've been there. On top of that, being targeted by my own cousin who works there. And yeah, it was quite rough, being told I wasn't good enough to do anything. But I showed them I became a captain. Didn't get the top job because it was up to the principal, and the principal does not like me. So I became a house captain, which is, for some reason, that it's a sort of club where it's like school captain rejects. But I showed them that it wasn't. No, I showed them that their decision was that their idea of me and their perception of me not being good enough for a captain, I showed them that that was wrong by becoming the first Aboriginal Youth Premier in the Youth Parliament program the next year, which was quite fun. But yeah, so at that point, I was still dealing with anxiety and stress and depression. But I think everybody deals with it. I think people deal with it, but they don't talk about it. Whereas I like to talk about it a lot. So yeah, so that's sort of like my mixed, like, weird pathway of a journey with mental health and dealing with it and that sort of stuff. Music is one of the important factors and important parts of Aboriginal culture, and especially Tongan culture as well. It's a way of storytelling and a teaching moment. So I use music as a way of teaching people about culture and about spirituality, and especially around these times where I see my First Nations brothers and sisters fighting against the injustice of black deaths in custody, the inequality of treatment between Aboriginal and Aboriginal people, and I've tried to use music as a way to speak out against them and against the injustice and the forms of like discrimination. It could be through language and songs. It could be through my performances, and in between performances I speak. Have a conversation with the audience, and I use that as a way. Because music is a major platform for everybody to speak out and to express their emotions and feelings and frustrations on the world. I would say to my younger self, don't be afraid to be yourself at the beginning. Because I was so afraid of what people think. Like, I was very secretive when it came to me coming out. Like, I wouldn't say that I am. Now I say that I wouldn't say that I am back then. Like, I wouldn't even tell my dad that I was. But, like, I regret being like that. But then again, I don't as well, because it did help me grow. So I think I would say to myself, like, don't be afraid to be who you are, because people come and go, and the people who are really true to who are really true to themselves and who are true to you will stay.